So what do you guys want to do today?
Dude, you want to crush them all?
Nice.
Okay.
And Canadian females were just exploding, so it just became very obvious to me that I was going to try to find a young female that could sing and then try to use those connections that I made in those earlier trips from Boston and Philadelphia and sort of plug her into my connections in the music business and just sort of see how we'd go. But the biggest thing that I did for Avril was I wasn't going to let her have a record that she didn't participate in, meaning that even if she didn't write anything, she was going to be in the room with the people that she wrote with. So that set a standard that this whole publishing thing, the biggest thing I did for her was get her published.
Okay, so but when you first met her, she was like just a country singer, right? Like at the chapters here in Kingston. How in 2.5 years did you actually get from that to her suddenly being like this huge pop sensation with zillions of records sold?
Well,
In 2.5 years.
it was very easy with Avril because Avril was fearless. Like I just sort of, took her under my wing and said, look, there's nothing wrong with you. Like you're a teenager and you're rebelling, but so you've just got to focus and getting her to focus was the big thing. And then once she understood that, she became a model student as far as all the experience that I had gained through those couple of years on the road and being able to bring her to New York and get her that record deal. We got a record deal very quick, and you're not going to do that today. But then it was a little different. She went into a studio, sang a few songs, and we had $1 million record deal. And that makes things a lot easier because then everybody wants to work with her. So I don't even know what the question is.
Well, how did it get there in 2.5 years?
Yeah, so it was just it was. We were living in New York. We were working with a lot of New York writers. Nothing was really happening. It seemed they were all writing country songs because that's how she kind of came in with L.A. Reid, where she was singing, she was doing covers of country songs. So of course they thought she was going to be this / country pop artist before Taylor Swift, sort of come in that route. But what I saw in her was I saw a rebel, and I saw like, wow, this girl's got attitude. So I was way more pushing. I came from Rage Against the Machine and some pretty heavy rock metal bands, and that was my style. And I just thought, I was introducing her to this style of music, and she was loving it. And then we'd go to a studio in London where I had a rock metal band that I had signed, Bomb 32, who was signed to RCA. She fell in love with them. So that progression of her musical taste just changed. And then finding those writers, we couldn't find them in New York because the label was kind of influencing what we were doing. But then once we got away from New York and went to LA, within 2 weeks we had Let Go River. I mean, it happened that fast. We met Cliff Magnus. So Cliff Magnus had worked with Glenn Ballard, who did Alanis Morissette's record. So Cliff knew nothing about Avril. I dropped her off in the morning, and they wrote this song called Unwanted with grinding guitars, and it was the first song to make Avril's record. But as an example, I played that song for the label, and they were just like, this is not Avril Lavigne. What are you doing? Like, they thought I was just an idiot. Avril loved it, I loved it, Cliff loved it. The very next day we went to meet the Matrix, and they had a country song written for her, and of course I went through my whole spiel, and when I played them Unwanted, they were just blown away, and they thought, wow. So I left them, I think, at 8 in the morning. I came back at 4 in the afternoon, and they had Complicated written.
The Matrix is a songwriting team.
Songwriting team. So there was 3 of them, 2 from Great Britain and 1 from LA. And they had the only credit they had at the time was a Christina Aguilera Spanish.
Okay, so I'm curious, like the old model of the music industry compared to now, like which did you prefer, and what's the hugest difference, would you say?
Well, I love today. Well, first of all, you have to, this is going to sound horrible. 15 years ago, you would have never heard of Adele. It just would not happen. With the weight issue and everything was driven by television and looks, it's the most shallow industry you're ever going to be a part of. So you have to find a niche in there that at the time, like there was very specific things that you could do to get a record deal, and it had to sort of fit in this, this area that to me was extremely shallow. So what it's done now is I mean, you can put your stuff up anywhere. Like if you look at, oh my God, Bieber's a great example of YouTube. But I wasn't a huge Bieber fan. Now I've sort of come around to sort of respect the fact, whether you like his music or not, the kid worked his ass off. And, you know, it was amazing that he started getting those numbers. So what I'm getting at is that if you want to get a record deal today, it's sort of like sports analytics. Everything is analytics now. It's all numbers. So this is why I tell young artists, like, everything you put on YouTube. So say I start, you know, I start with you and I put your name out there to some people that I want to see your stuff in the industry. I guarantee you the first thing they're going to do is Google your name. So I would highly suggest, if you're an artist, that you Google your name and see what's out there on you, because if you get somebody that does want to help you, you have to be very careful of anything that you put online, because they're going to see it. And if you don't have the numbers to back up, like you're looking at $1 million for a YouTube video or a song that you put out, and if you don't have those numbers, you're not getting a record deal. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know if that answers what you're asking, but I love today because I just feel it's more wide open, and there's just so many different ways now that you can get noticed and you know, get the experience that you need. To get
Anybody can get heard these days, right? If you really put
anybody can get heard, but yeah. So where I come in this day and age is, because now it's completely changed for me, because now I've got to come up with more creative ways to get my acts noticed. So what am I doing differently than everybody else? So yes, I cheat because I have all these great contacts. So I can take my acts directly to Go, and they're not going to maybe look at the numbers because we won't have those numbers, but they'll take a chance because look at the success this guy's had. So they're gonna take a look at what I'm doing, and they're gonna want to know what I'm doing. But for me, the preparation now is really, it's always about the song. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It is always about the song.
That's hugely important right there. It's always about the song, even if you're not a very good singer, right?
Well, you can make a career in music without being a singer.
Well, yeah,
To
exactly.
me,
Just be a songwriter for sure.
It's absolutely number one. And you can learn to write songs. I don't care who you are. Like, you know, you're meeting these kids that are 15, 16, and they're like, well, I've never written a song. So what? It's a learned art. You might not be great at it at first, but the people that we'd be putting you in touch with to work with, it's a process, and you're going to learn how to write, and then you become more adept at it, and hopefully you become, you know, a writer on your own right, in your own right.
Do you have an opinion as to why the major label? Yeah, of course you do. Sorry, what a stupid question. Why?
I have some opinions.
Yeah, I know you do. Why were the major labels so slow to pick up on this whole internet sales thing? I mean, like way behind everybody else.
We're making gazillion dollars off of artists, and they couldn't care less about any other revenue stream. And it's interesting how it's all changed. So let me go back. So the only thing that a record label cared about, say post 90 or 2007, was record sales, because you know, during the 80s when they changed from vinyl to CDs, it was just such a money maker, and they were taking like 80% of the record royalties and stuff, and every deal was so corrupt, and every artist hated their label. It was just a running theme. So, and I hated major labels, even though I was a part of them, because of that very thing. So when this explosion happened with Napster, which was absolute genius, you know, Steve Jobs, Apple, builds a device to play air, and the labels are suing the company.
So the music business.
I call Michael a poor man's Joe Cocker.
Continue through the grassy window.
Is the music business going to survive, you think?
Yes,
Like past, I mean, next year?
absolutely. Yeah, music's more popular than ever, and now they're finally figuring out, you know, this streaming thing, and if you think about it, like paying $9.99 or whatever you're paying a month for your, you know, every song,
Spotify or whatever.
or Apple Music, it's brilliant. It's like, you know, I love it. So yeah, it's going to survive, and I think they're getting smarter. I think it's changing. I think there's a lot of more mid-level companies that are starting these independent labels and publishing companies, and I mean, it's an all-in-one shop. What we've done. So when I came back after Album Samantha Jessica in about 2013, and having obviously my association with Mark at Blues Fest, and Mark came to me on the anniversary and he said, look, I want to do something different for She's the One. She's the One was at the time it was for girls across Canada, any age, and it started about 8 years ago. And the winner was always in their 20s, 30s. I mean, it was just, they were that talented and they were blowing away the younger kids. So I suggested, let's do 13 to 19. We'll create a Hollywood edition. We'll take the winner to LA. We'll do all this fabulous stuff at Sunset Sound, Interscope Studios. We'll work with, big name producers. We'll get a song, we'll get a video, we'll do a photo shoot. So all of that stuff, because for me, what I was thinking about was I need to create a platform now where I can have that indie label, have that publishing company, the entities. So I need money, so I found a very, very good financial backer that was willing to put a lot of money in. Then I went to Mark and we created a company. This was after the fact, but we kind of created this company together where we were 50-50 and she's the one. And then, so the first year winner, of course, we weren't judging, and we had some local people and friends judging, and they picked a folk singer from Newfoundland who was absolutely brilliant, great talent, but a folk singer, just the music, nothing really, it wasn't the right kind of artist for what I had envisioned it was going to be. So the next year, instead of doing the $50,000 prize to Hollywood, we came up with this thing. Let's try to get one of the labels in Canada. Don't get me started on labels in Canada. But let's try to get a label in Canada, and we'll make it a nice thing, because Ottawa's the capital. We'll do this thing. Universal was the best of the Canadian labels, so we made a singles deal with Universal. So for the 2015 winner, she would get a single distributed through Universal Music. And everything that comes with that. So working with a producer, right? I mean, everything that would entail releasing a single on radio.
So marketing too.
Everything. So 2015, it was a girl, Grace Lachance won, and she happened to be from Ottawa. But the 10 finalists were from across Canada. Grace just had this thing about her, this beautiful voice, but more attitude, fearless personality, and she ended up winning. So her release came a year later, which was August 26th of this year, 2016. Her single is still across Canada right now on radio with no promotion dollars towards that. She was the Bell Media Artist of the Month, which means one artist a month across Canada gets picked, their single gets picked to play on all the Bell Media platforms across the country. So we started getting all of these incredible things for Grace and that single, and all of that came out of that contest. And from that, of course, the publishing and touring, everything is sort of, so now in 2 years, we've had this incredible success with She's the One. And of course, we picked our 2016 winner, and now she's going through the same process that Grace went through last year. So we seem to have found a formula, which is like a platform to sort of how we want to kind of release our artists. And we hired everything ourselves. We got our independent radio promotion, we got our own, media people. We got everything. We basically paid for everything ourselves, and it was all under $10,000, which is
that's amazing.
Well, back in the day, before, payola, if you don't know what payola is, meaning that record labels would literally walk in with a bag of cash, and throw it at a DJ, and they would play your song. And that's how record labels got a lot of their records played on the radio. So today, payola is illegal, so you can't do that, but you can still buy advertising. So,
Just a different form of payola.
yeah, well, it's always about money. All these radio stations are corporations, and they need to survive by getting advertising. And like I said, we were very fortunate because we had a festival, and we also had an incredible radio promotion guy who wanted to work with us because of the festival and this artist, and we just completely lucked out. But I'm lying. A lot of it's fixed. I mean, the Bell Media thing, everything that we got for this young lady was because of our connections.
Yeah.
So it was a lot easier for us to get radio play for an independent artist, because you do have those CanCon laws. I think it's like they have to play 30% Canadian. That's why you hear the hip so much, and a lot of the Canadian bands, although I can listen to them all day, but I'm just saying that's why you hear a lot of Canadian bands on radio.
Okay, so you sort of touched on this before, but how has the music industry changed, especially for new acts coming to
I
market?
just think it's wide open now, and like I said, be creative. I read so bad with names. The dude, good-looking Canadian dude, not Bieber.
Oh,
Big star.
Shawn Mendes.
Mendez. So Mendez was doing it through Vines. He was making those short little vines, and
Right.
his numbers started going crazy, and then he
He's
got
on
noticed.
covers, right?
He got noticed in the States. And I don't know if I should go here.
I'll go for it.
I've never had any of my acts signed with Canadian labels, and it's not that Canadian labels are evil, it's just that I think we're like the 12th or 15th market in the world, and we have the biggest market in the world right below us. So I've always gone down there first, and my theory was always you make it there, you come back here. You name an act that's an international act today, Celine Dion, Shania Twain, Sarah McLachlan, Avril Lavigne, Alanis Morissette, I can't believe I'm gonna say Nickelback. Bare Naked Ladies had their run. They were all signed to American labels first. Fact. You couldn't do a fact. No, Rush is different, because Rush didn't get radio play either. They were brilliant, and that's, again, management. I actually got to meet him. Rush is one of those grassroots stories that, you know, they did it their way and the hard way, and they just built an audience, and they're huge in New Jersey.
Okay, I have a big question for you here.
I'm in New Jersey a lot.
What about Kim Mitchell?
Well, that was before my time. I mean, that was, what are you defining as success though? Like, the Tragically Hip are huge in Canada, but maybe not so much in the States or Europe. And I'm talking more like in a big international side. Do you consider Kim Mitchell an international star? That would be my question. I'm talking about the acts that are just mega, like, you know, like Alanis and Celine and Shania.
International superstars.
Yeah, like the ones that are in the top 3 of their genre.
I only have like 5 more questions.
Bryan Adams, again, great management. 5?
Yeah, only 5. Well, I'll do them quickly.
Okay.
But this is a really important one. So, how do you know when to reach for outside help?
Well, I kind of got into it like I said, it's music business. So if you have those business skills, which I think everybody has, to be entrepreneurial and like I said, smart enough to get attention online or create that social media thing like Taylor Swift did, then that's great. So, I mean, but if you can't do that, but you have ability, then you just have to, I don't want to say luck out, but you have to find somebody that is really entrepreneurial and that can do that side of it for you and help you get the attention that you feel you deserve.
The next 2 questions are kind of combined in a sense. What routes to market do musicians have nowadays? How do you market musicians in the present day? How do you stand out today?
Well, it's not easy because there's just so much everything. Like I said, what I did was when I came back in 2013, and I was like, okay, we have to create a platform. We have to have a launch pad. You can't just sign a kid and try to get a major label. It's not going to happen, or it's going to take way too long, and it's going to cost too much money to get there. So, again, very fortunate to have the festivals. There's 2 of them now. So we were able to get, through a device in the festival, we were able to, build this thing where, as I said, in 2015 was really our first attempt into it. Is that what you mentioned?
How about this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, how did, what you're talking about, what, 5%, 3%, 2% that stand out, the Biebers and the Shawn Mendes. But look at this, I didn't even know this, but this Ruth B, this song, I can't remember it was. This song's all over radio. It's
Lost Boy.
Lost Boy. I mean, I didn't know she was Canadian, but again, she was signed, she was putting stuff up online. I guess she was getting some pretty good numbers. Somebody in the States noticed her, they got her down, they signed her. And then you look at Alessia Cara with Here, I mean, again, I think there's a Canadian production company in the middle, but she's definitely signed to US label. She's with, I think, and those 2 female artists are both, I think, around 40. Huge success.
This is important. Like, how do you turn casual
write great songs. It's always about the song.
Okay, so how do you define success in publicly?
Well, I define success very differently because I saw what happened to Afro, and I would wish that on anyone. That was just way too much too fast. And when you're a 16-year-old kid having that heaped upon you, you become like you got everybody telling you how wonderful you are, especially the labels. And I was gone just before the release of Let Go, but I mean I still look at that as my record, but I was gone just before the release of the new management company. Everything was new, so she had nobody kind of there that, in my opinion, that was telling her the truth. They were just sort of telling her. And she starts believing what she's reading, and that kind of success goes to your head. And I'll use an example. The Matrix, who she wrote 3 #1 hits with and had 6 songs on that record, they never wrote with her again. And they were the first ones to come out in Rolling Stone that were just really pissed off that she was basically telling everybody that she wrote the record. And the problem I had with it was, you know, I fell in love with the Matrix, and I fell in love with Apple, and it was like, that was a great team. And I think if she would have stuck with them, and who knows what would happen, but look, we don't, in the artists I work with, we don't sell sex. You know, Apple is not Britney Spears or, you know, Christina Aguilera, any of that stuff. If anything, it was the complete opposite of that. And then you kind of saw Apple evolve that once you have to keep making money, you some things that maybe are out of character, and you know, you're doing some more, you know, that kind of stuff that some of the magazine covers sort of goes to that, because it's like you gotta, you know, when you're making that much money for the record labels, if she's worth $100 million today, then those companies have made $1 billion publishing and, you know, off of a record of that success. That success is like there's Michael Jackson's Thriller, there's like Alanis Morissette's Fleetwood Mac. Our was right up there. That record was right up there with some of the biggest records of all time.
I think we actually have to stop at this.
Thank you so much.
Grew up in a small town, but when the snow would fall down, I just stare out my window, dreaming of what could be, and if I'd end up happy.